got a PSA for everyone. We had a Vic Fangio press conference yesterday, and it was good to hear Vic. We hadn't heard him really in a formal setting since the Super Bowl, and look, he had a lot of questions to answer yesterday. I thought I always think Vic Fangio press conferences are fun because he's very real. I felt this from the minute he got here.
He's a matter-of-fact kind of guy.
He's not going to sugarcoat it. He's going to tell you what he feels. And it doesn't mean he's ripping people all the time, but it just means he's going to give you...
It is what it is.
Exactly right. And I thought last summer he gave us it is what it is, and he basically told us a year ago, it's going to take some time. I don't know, right? And then he was right. It took time, and it became a great Eagles defense. And look, I'm not doubting Vic Fangio. I'm just telling you my takeaway after listening to him yesterday. And my takeaway is that we're going to take a big step back on defense this year. And that could have been obvious before he stepped to the podium yesterday. I could have just looked at the depth chart, who they lost, Milton Williams and Josh Sweat and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Darius Slay. They lost a ton off of the best defense in Eagles history. But after listening to him yesterday and listening to the way he's talking about some uncertainty they have at a lot of different positions and what he doesn't know yet until they get on the field this summer, I feel like, we're not just going to go from being the number one defense and take a slight step back. I'm expecting a significant step back. A
major step?
Major step back. Now, look, I think there's enough here. Let me say this. With Carter and with Bond and with DeJean and with Quinyon, that it will be good, right? They're going to have, or it will be solid at least. They're going to have a solid defense, and Fangio's smart enough, and they'll figure things out over the course of the season, and they'll put people in the right position. But we had the number one defense of pro football. It was a dominant unit. Defense, of course, is a necessity, as we learned last year on this show. And I think we're taking a big step back. In fact, I wouldn't even be comfortable right now saying this is a top 10 or 12 defense. I don't feel that. Maybe it will be, but as of today, I don't feel comfortable saying that. Hugh, where are you on the defense, all the losses, and what Vic had to say yesterday? Are you expecting a big step back?
Well, allow me to long talk for a minute because I feel it's warranted. I know we do a radio show and we have to have opinions, but a lot of times I think, our fans need a little bit, you need to put a little bit more mayonnaise on that sandwich, right? So what Vic did yesterday, he tried to let people know that just like when he came in here last year, it was a work in progress. And they had a bunch of new guys. And fortunate enough for him, it all came together because he had a bunch of smart guys on the team, and they understood exactly what he wanted them to do, and they implemented it. This year, it's the same thing. When you talk about the young linebacker that we just got, the one we drafted, you talk about Nakobe Dean coming off an injury. You talk about Zach Bond potentially being the green dot guy now. There's a lot of moving parts. And you talk about the young guys dealing with their first offseason in the NFL. I gave you a little story yesterday about my first offseason in the NFL and how it went for me. It might not be the same thing for them, but it's still an adjustment. So for me, going into this season and dealing with this defense, it's highly likely that they're going to take a step back because of all the other factors that are in this. The fact that you just won the Super Bowl, you are the conquering heroes on a team that nobody knew what they were going to be the year before. Now you have – the biggest thing for me going into this year is not so much athletic ability because on paper, the Eagles are the best, one of the best teams, if not the best team in football right now. I just say it like that because I don't feel like arguing with nobody this morning. But the thing that you have to combat against is your complacency.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's it's easy to say, hard to do. Because Brian Dawkins alluded to that the other day when we were out there at his golf tournament, is that take a deep breath, but not for too long. And a lot of these guys are still taking that deep breath. I mean, it's just a fact. Like the guys that we talk about, the ones that we know, the Cooper DeJeans, the Saquon Barkleys, you don't too much worry about them because they've been in the game for a while. But even still with Saquon, there's a little worry because he's found a new – he's been resurrected. He's been resurrected. It's the younger cats, the Jimmies and the Joes that you have to count on that going back home. And I'm just throwing his name in my head, not saying he's not working, but like the Jalix Hunts of the world. The guys that came in and had an impact, a huge impact in short bursts that came in and did their thing in the Super Bowl. Now you're asking him to take a bigger role in this defense and become more of what you need, especially when you let Bryce Huff go. So there's a lot that's going on with this team. So to answer your question in long form, Joe.
Yeah, a little long talking.
I expect him to take a little step
A little step back? No, it's a big step back. We got question marks, too.
I know I was long.
We got question marks at every level of the defense. And look, I'm not saying these young guys can't play, because I liked what I saw to Hunt. I love Nolan Smith.
Yeah.
But there's question marks at, like, if it was one area, I would say, all right, we'll patch together. Every area has a question mark. All right,
yes.
So the defensive line.
The secondary?
Everything.
Let's
start up front. Defensive line, we know we got Jalen Carter, great player. Great young player. But we got question marks around him, right? Can Ojomo play better with a lot of snaps, or is he more just like a part-time guy? Okay, we lost Milton Williams. Jordan Davis, everyone tells me he's in shape now. We do this dance every year where he's in shape, out of shape. Let's see it for a full season. Linebacker. Nakobe Dean was a huge part of what they did last year, and we'll hear it in a second here from Vic. It doesn't sound like he's close to being ready. Jahad Campbell, not close to being ready to start this thing when training camp starts. Okay, so you have all that. We lost depth at the linebacker position. They lost pass rush with Josh Sweat. They lost Brandon Graham. They lost Darius Slay. The safety position, I mean, the only thing I could count on is Reed Blankenship, who you called a casual white yesterday. I mean, like, that's not something.
I did not. Well,
you did.
I was for all those that didn't listen yesterday, I was referring to the podcast.
You were.
I was referring to the podcast.
Misnamed the podcast. Exciting Mike says casual whites, which I told you that's the area of the store I shop in. Bottom line is this. The Eagles have a lot of questions on defense. Vic Fangio was a great coordinator, and I think he'll get this thing. He'll patch it together, but I'm expecting a big step back. Let's listen to Vic yesterday. First, talking about the safety position, nickel, corner, DeJean, all this stuff. Let's hear yesterday Vic Fangio speaking about Cooper and where he might use him.
What are you looking to find out about Cooper as you're trying him out at base, that corner, in that plan right now?
With Cooper DeJean? Yeah, we'd like to keep him at nickel. And then in our base package, we'll find a spot for him, either at corner or safety.
What's the benefit of someone who can play inside at nickel and outside in base? Because you'd have to find, someone at corner at the nickel size with like 80% of snaps.
Yeah, I think a lot of it will end up depending upon how the rest of the guys develop and where do we most need them. So it will be determined by what's best for him and what's best for the team. And it'll probably, what's best for the team will win out in that decision. But he's capable of playing corner and he's capable of playing safety.
What do you like about the idea of Cooper at safety, and what will go into determining whether he plays at safety or the outside?
Well, I think he would play very well at safety. I think it suits his skill set, things that he does well. I just think he would do very well in there.
So I agree with Vic on that. I think Cooper she could play anywhere they put him, and he's going to succeed. But what I heard there, and he didn't say this, but what I heard was like, I don't know what I got at safety. I might have to use him at safety. That spoke to me more about the uncertainty at safety more than Cooper. I think they're just going to plug him where they need to plug him.
Versatility.
Yeah,
it's always good to have that, and that's what he's talking about. Because to be honest, that's the first time I heard Cooper playing safety
since college. He did it in Iowa.
I mean, he did it. Like, he has that skill set,
sure.
And we talk about that all the time. The more you can do in the NFL, that's a great thing. And it's obvious that Cooper is that type of athlete. But if Cooper is better served at the slot, I would rather have Cooper at the slot.
I would too. Then I think they would too, which well, here's what I'll tell you this. It made me think he's a little bit unsure what he's got at safety.
Well, and let's be fair. This is the first OTA, if I'm not mistaken. They get a little bit more work next week. Everybody's being evaluated. And this is a fluid situation. It could change. Somebody could step up, and somebody could start to grasp. Because a lot of times when I hear Vic Fangio speak like that, Joe, the thing that I think about is not so much athleticism, is understanding your role in the defense. That's the biggest thing. Understanding what you're supposed to do in the defense and how you communicate to everybody else. It's like a cog in a wheel, and you're one of the cogs, but you have to know what your role is so that you could flow with everybody else. And if things change on the fly or adjust, that you're able to fit, like we used to call them run fits and stuff like that. Be able to fit in the defense when somebody is either out of position or you need to replace that person, something like that.
The other thing unveiled yesterday, and we keep getting more like drips of details on this, is Jahad Campbell. He's the biggest acquisition they made this offseason. He's their first-round pick. So much upside. They went crazy with it. It was there for them, to make that pick late in the first round. But when are we going to see him on the field? Here was Fangio talking about Jahad Campbell and when we might see him this summer.
What kind of role do you envision for Jahad Campbell? And specifically as a pass rusher, how do you evaluate him?
Well, right now he's working at ILB because there's a lot more to learn there. So that's where we'll start him. He won't hit the practice field until, sometime in August. So we're doing all we can. He's doing all he can in meetings. We're doing all we can with him on the field. I take him to the side and do an individual drill with him that's suited to what he can do right now. So he's working good and trying to pick it up.
When you see him, though, do you see pass rush upside with Jahad?
Potentially.
What would it take to realize that?
Getting him out there.
No, it
doesn't sugarcoat anything.
It's stream of conscience, man. He just, because I understand the reporter's question. He's trying to get as much as he can. Mm-hmm. But you also have to understand that this is the first time he had his hands on him.
Yep.
And he's hurt. So how could he possibly answer that question? He can't.
He can't. I mean, he could.
He could talk. He could say what he saw on film in college.
Right.
But that necessarily doesn't translate to the NFL.
No, it doesn't. 215-592-9494. And I think Campbell's going to be an excellent player. I think we all like the pick. It's just a matter of when he's on the field and is he fully healthy this year and getting himself ingrained in the defense and learning one or multiple positions. Look, the Eagles are going to be okay on defense, but they weren't okay last year. They were dominant, and I'm not expecting that this year. I'm expecting a big step back. 215-592-9494. Kyle, where do you come down? Vic spoke yesterday for the first time, and it certainly sounds like we have a lot of questions on defense.
Well. I don't know. I just seem to remember me trying to pound the table to get Myles Garrett here. TJ Watt here, a significant
I told you so,
on the
Kyle?
defensive line. Yeah, no, and all I heard was Vic Fangio this, Vic Fangio that. They found Zach Bond, this and that. And now all of a sudden we're accepting the reality that this defense is very likely to take a pretty good step back next year. I don't think they're going to be bad, but I don't think middle of the pack is out of the question. I think it's more likely that they're, top 10. I'm not going top 5. I don't think they're going to be top 5. It's just too many holes, too many question marks for me. There's a significant question mark, I think, at every single level of this defense right now. We don't know about these edge rushers. I don't like Josh Uche, who they got, might not even make the team. I know I saw he was on Elliott's bubble. They just got rid of Bryce Huff. Brandon Graham's gone. We know all the subtractions and the additions this offseason. Safety very much seems up in the air, even if you listen to what Vic Fangio just said. They're trying Cooper DeJean out there because it doesn't feel like they know what the answer is there. And then the linebacking thing, you have Zach Bond. We know that. But Nakobe Dean's not back until, I don't know, I would have to guess after the trade deadline or November, something like that, a significant chunk of the season without Nakobe. And then even then, we don't know what he's going to look like when he gets back, coming off a pretty major injury. And then Jahad Campbell, we don't know what he is anyway. 2, he's not even ready to practice yet, and we have no idea what role he's going to be in. There's just so many question marks on this defense right now. And, I mean, if you just add in the statistical likelihood that a team that went from 30 to number 1 is probably going to regress back to the mean in some way. I think it's crazy to say that they're going to be a top 5 defense this year, or crazy to think that they're going to just run it back and be a top 5 defense next year with all those losses.
Yeah, let me lay it out for you. Just picture this. This is my guess right now on the opening night defense when the Cowboys come in here. Okay, this is my guess, and it could change. Injuries, trades, signings, whatever. But they're very likely to line it up like this: Jalen Carter up front, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Moro Ojomo. Linebackers: Zach Bond, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Nolan Smith on the edge. And then your 5 defensive backs: Quinyon, Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, Cooper DeJean, Keeler Ringo. Ojomo, Trot Jr., Sidney Brown, Keely Ringo. I mean, those are downgrades from what they had last year. I mean, I can't say it another way. It doesn't mean those guys can't play at all, but they're downgrades. This is going to be a work in progress, Hugh, especially that first month of the season. Dallas, Kansas City, Rams, Bucks. That's not an easy month.
I wouldn't necessarily call them a downgrade. I would call them unknowns. Because to be fair, Sidney Brown was hurt last year. So we didn't get to see a whole lot of him.
Do you think he'll be better or the same as Chauncey Gardner-Johnson?
Wait a minute, Joe. I'm about to
Well, I'm just because if it's not better or the same, it's a downgrade.
No,
I'm
saying is
workshopping.
I know it's unknown. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. has been in the system for at least the season.
Yeah.
So we don't know how he's evolved and changed. And remember, his dad is Trot, and Trot was on the show yesterday. And he was talking about how, how I would venture to say, and I haven't even asked Trot this, but he's getting his son ready to play this year like he's a starter. And that's not me talking like I talked to Trot. I just know him. And knowing Trot is getting Jeremiah Trotter Jr. ready to be a starter. Even if he's not penciled in as a starter, young Trotter is going to come in ready to start if his number's called. So I'm not worried about him. Now, when you talk about these other guys, Joe, like the Keely Ringos and guys like that, yeah, there's an unknown, but there's an unknown about Quinyon Mitchell last year. There's an unknown about
but he was a first-round pick.
But it's still unknown.
Right, but there's pedigree.
How many first-round picks have you seen that come into the league?
Totally. I understand your point.
You see what I'm saying?
But there also is an element of known about Keely Ringo. Like, we've seen him out there before. And then when Slay was hurt, they put Isaiah Rodgers in.
But you've seen him in a small sampling size when he had to come out there pressed in a situation where somebody was hurt or somebody was down. It's different when you're getting all the reps and you're getting coached differently because you're being coached as a starter. You're not out there getting 2 or 3 reps. Now you're getting all the first team reps. You're getting all 8 reps. So that's different, and they're coaching him different.
And that will help. No, I understand your point. They're unknowns, and you're right. They all could be positive, right? These guys could take huge steps. They could be better than I think. I'm just today, like I look at the depth chart.
No, it's fair to be worried about them today.
Milton to Ojomo is a downgrade.
Yeah.
Dean to Trotter is a downgrade. Sydney to CJ to Sydney Brown or whoever it's going to be Makuba is probably a downgrade. And Slay to Keely feels like a downgrade. I mean, that's 4 spots. And I didn't even include the Brandon Graham element as a rotational guy to Azeez Ojulari and whatever they're going to have at that position. 215-592-9494. Vic spoke yesterday, and his honesty is always eye-opening. Are you expecting a big step back out of the Eagles' defense? I am. Sounds like Kyle is. He was expecting what would you call it, a slight step back?
It's going to be a step back. But it's going to be not
big. You're saying
I don't
big?
think so. I'm excited about what this team could potentially be. I am.
They better score some points.